This podcast is CME eligible. To learn more about CME, Alex, what do they do?
They can either go to the CME tab associated with this episode, or they can go to geripal.org/CME.
And on to the show. Welcome to the Jerry Powell Podcast. This is Eric Guarnero.
This is Alex Smith.
And this is the 400th episode.
Whoa, 400. Can you believe it?
10 years. 10 years.
That's right.
2016 to 2026.
Yeah, you and Ken said, hey, let's record a podcast about bed alarms. Bring your guitar.
And what did you say, Alex?
I said, sure, I'll sing Free Fallin'.
I'm pretty sure you said, what's a podcast?
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't actually listened to a podcast before I recorded a podcast.
Alex, who's in the room with us?
Oh, yes, we should introduce our guest hosts returning from the 300th episode and frequent guest hosts. We have Anne Kelly, who's a social worker in palliative care.
Hello.
And we have Lynn Flint, who is the director of the Jerry Powell Fellowship at UCSF. And yeah, returning as guest host. Thank you, Lynn.
And outpatient palliative care doctor.
There you go. Great.
Anne and Lynn, what are we doing today?
Well, for those of you who've been listening for a while, and you probably helped us celebrate the 300th episode, so this is going to be a little deja vu for you. But we're bringing back what works well. We're going to do an Ask Me Anything, and we're going to do it
Hot Ones style.
Oh,
Again.
What's Hot Ones? Remind me.
Well, you'll see in front of us here, if you're watching on YouTube, we've got some delicious wings with really hot sauce arranged in order on our plate. So as we go through today, we're going to take a few pauses and gradually increase the spice level.
Oh, Extreme Regret is one of the names. Extreme Regret.
I think that's
sauce.
I think it's a familiar feeling for some of us. I also will say some of your listeners kindly wrote in and contributed some questions.
Thank you, listeners. Today.
And so what we're going to be doing is, as we're eating these deliciously hot wings, we're going to be going through asking you both some questions, asking you to think hard.
Should we start with...
Well, before we start, do we have a song request?
Oh, right. The song.
Anne, Lynn, do you have a song request?
Of course we have a song request.
Let me guess, Taylor Swift.
Yeah?
Yeah, Taylor Swift. What song?
What song and why?
So the song is 22, and it's a fun, carefree song. And one of the questions actually made me think of it.
Oh, okay. So when we get to that question, then we'll understand the rationale.
I think so.
Okay. Interesting. I'm curious what that question's about. Okay, here we go. It's a little bit. It feels like a perfect night to dress up like hipsters, make fun of our exes. It feels like a perfect night for breakfast at midnight, to fall in love with strangers. Yeah, we're happy, free, confused, and lonely at the same time. It's miserable and magical, oh yeah. Tonight's the night when we forget about the deadlines. It's time. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. Everything will be alright if you keep me next to you. You don't know about me, but I bet you want to. Everything will be alright if we just keep dancing like we're 22. Yeah.
That was an outstanding version.
Also, I feel like most of us are still pretty close to 22, right?
Dear listeners, that was 52, does 22.
There's so many reasons I requested the song, because I think it's, you're forever 22.
All right, well, we're going to dig in here, and I'm going to ask all of you to start with your first wing, number 1 here. And as we take a bite in, Lynn's going to start us off with some questions.
Is it that one?
Right.
Yeah, it's that one. Yeah.
Okay.
So we got lots of great questions from the listeners, but Anne and I also took the liberty of peppering in a few of our own.
Good one, Lynn.
Wait,
good one.
Is this one supposed to be the most mild?
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I'm not eating
Oh my
it
God.
We weren't exactly sure what order, but that's pretty spicy for the most for a starter.
yet. We have
Makes you afraid of what's
Tums
to
and
come.
milk and stuff. Anyways, here's
Okay.
your first question. Think about this. Coffee or tea? And who makes it best?
Definitely coffee.
Alex's coffee. Do not drink Alex's coffee.
No.
He puts in.
My coffee is the best. Here, I've got one right here.
Don't drink it. It's
3/4 soy milk, a splash of vanilla creamer, and then the remainder of the cup is filled
Just
with
for
coffee.
the listeners out there, more than once I've had to explain to Alex that I should not be able to see through the coffee when he makes a pot of coffee.
It is also permissible if you have like leftover grounds in there and later in the day you want some more coffee to add some water to the machine, pour it over the leftover grounds and drink that coffee.
I'm going to do a hard pass on this question because I got to move Alex beyond the coffee.
Eric's all pour over.
It is not. Yeah.
Okay, next question. Do either of you have any jokes that you sometimes use with your patients?
Anna's saying this and looking at me because my joke is always when we're talking about bowel movements, your number 2 is our number 1. And then Anne rolls her eyes.
Like clockwork.
Like clockwork.
Like clockwork.
Do you have any jokes, Alex?
I don't know. Do I have any jokes?
I don't know. Do you?
I don't
Do you know
think
any by
so.
heart?
No.
No.
Do I have with patients? No.
There you go. Okay, let's launch into the next question.
Grab a second wing, everybody.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we're on the second?
Yeah, we're in the
Oh, wow.
we're
We're
second
moving
wing.
along.
So this is from Paul Zimmerman, who's a palliative care physician and fellowship director at UNC.
All right. Hi, Paul.
And Paul's question is the one that made me sort of confirm that I wanted to ask for 22 as my song. Paul says, I've listened to many of your podcasts and have met both of you on a few Jerry Pal pub crawls.
Great. Thank you for coming out, Paul.
You both seem like genuinely happy people who bring a lot of joy and energy to your work. What advice would you give to others who want to help cultivate more fun and camaraderie in the field and in the workplace?
Ooh. Oh, first of all, this one is not spicy at all, by the way.
This is
like a
Trader Joe's spicy honey sauce.
It is just honey. That is why didn't we start off with
The first one was Fly by Jing Sichuan Chili Crisp. That one was spicy. Yeah. Okay. So what can we do to build community? Well, I think the beauty of social media is it's democratizing. Anybody can start a podcast. And we love it when people start podcasts, or we used to help people get into social media before as, what would Bob Wachter call it? Like a cesspool?
Yeah.
Owned by oligarchs who, using it for their own agendas. So anybody can use it. And there are many people who have started it even recently, like Stephanie Rogers, who we recently on, who has an amazing Instagram account that everybody should check out. Something, do you remember what it was? Something with Stephanie, some better aging with Stephanie, something like that. Anyway,
Dr. Steph.
Yes, there aren't a whole lot of podcasts, I would say, aimed at the clinician audience, which is our primary target, like clinicians, researchers, multidisciplinary folks who are engaged in improving care for people with serious illness or older adults. And so that's also opportunity. So there's room for others. But do you. Whatever you do, build community, right? Maybe you're a comedian. I think there's a comedian at UNC who we want to have on at some point. Maybe you do improv. Maybe you're a storyteller. Figure out your own way to bring people together. Because I do think that one of the reasons we're in this field and we stay in the field is that sense of shared purpose and community.
Yeah. And doing both geriatrics and palliative care is fun. Like, this is actually fun work, which is always weird when you're talking to people at parties. What do you do? If I mention geriatrics or palliative care, it usually ends the conversation. But this just morning, I was in with a patient and we were just talking about his life. We were laughing. We were joking together. I did not use your number 2 as my number 1 joke because I already used it last week on him. But I get to really, I don't know, when you're working with a good team, you're seeing these patients, it's not all sadness. There's a tremendous amount of joy. And I think bringing the joy back into medicine is a lot of what we do in geriatrics and palliative care.
Great. Well, our next question is also from someone at UNC, Meredith Gilliam, a physician. And she's asking, has any interview caused you to change something about your own clinical practice?
Ooh, what do you think, Alex?
Sure. Lots of interviews have caused me to change things about. Like, for example, we did podcasts on loneliness and social isolation. And then I resolved to ask every patient the next time I was on service, do you feel lonely? Which, of course, is not in the UCLA loneliness scale, which is like the official scale, but it's the question I can remember. And a similar experience when we had the podcast with Jackie Cruiser and others about that paper, maybe don't say, if you needed intubation, what should we do?
Why not?
Yeah. Or if you needed, tube feeding, what should we do?
I need to know why.
Yeah. So you're right. So briefly, why not, Eric?
I'm the one asking you.
The reason is, of course, if you say needed, then it sounds like it's absolutely essential, right? But there are many alternatives. So the better question is, if your loved one was short of breath, or if you were short of breath, let's talk about ways in which we could treat that. And there are a variety of different ways.
Yeah. And I also like the one, and I still have to remember this, is because I think we talked about want too in that, and how want can be fantastical. Like, I want to win the lottery, but I don't necessarily expect to win the lottery.
Right.
So want, like, do you want to be intubated? It's a dumb question. So rethinking both need and want, and maybe using different terms, that's one thing. I think the other podcasts that we've done on buprenorphine,
yeah, definitely
use a lot more buprenorphine now,
way more buprenorphine.
as a way to both help manage symptoms, pain. Encourage all of our listeners, if you haven't read or listened to the buprenorphine podcast, check those out, because that's one thing that's definitely changed with my practice.
Also thinking about, I used to use gabapentin like for everything.
Yeah.
Maybe don't use it for everything. Maybe.
That's actually one of our top podcasts, the gabapentinoids podcast.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of them, but really decreasing the use of that and deprescribing them.
Yeah, I also like, I could go on.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you, because we have a lot of good questions to go through. Right. And you guys, let's get some heat going on
we're on
here.
I like that last one.
I know you did.
We spend the whole hour on that one.
We're moving on. Get to that.
We're going to try the mango. This is from Hawaii. This is from made with Maui chilies.
So while you're eating that, our next question, what medical term do you still have trouble spelling?
All of them.
Maui, by the way, the Maui is not spicy at all.
Not spicy.
I'm liking.
Yeah, this is spicy in Hawaii. Relativistic, like in Hawaii, where no food is spicy, this is spicy. But,
It's not spicy.
Not spicy.
I'm actually going to mix it a little bit with the first one, because I need a little bit of heat, just so I don't get used to
a lot.
Wait, what was the question again?
What word is hard for you to spell?
Well, I remember when my kids were young and I dropped them off at daycare, and then you had to write down what foods they had. And then like my wife would pick up the kid at the end of the day and she'd say, Alex, how do you spell banana? How many N's are in banana? I'm a terrible speller, dear listeners. So I'm sure that every word I misspell. And there's no autocorrect in the electronic health record we use, right?
Yeah.
There's a spell check.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
There is?
We'll talk about that after the taping here, Alex.
Drug regimen. Regimen is a hard one for me. Regimen.
These are not medical terms.
All right, medical term. Well, medical term-ish. My always story is that we did a New England Journal Family Meeting podcast video, and was in that. And we're submitting our paper to the New England Journal, and we talked about a mnemonic. And the editorial response back to us was
no.
Yeah, it was. Well, I spelt it mnemonic with a PN, and they reminded me mnemonic for this. This is not like a mnemonic. Like,
you're too used to using doctor terms like pneumonia.
Yeah, like pneumonia. Yeah. This is MN,
pneumatic compression.
Mnemonic. Yeah,
yeah, different. Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, that question makes me think of the first question, because it reminds me of our Geriatrics spelling bee. Just putting that out there. We had a spelling bee. I lost on the generic for Keppra, which I can't pronounce either. I can't spell it or pronounce it. Anyways, okay. Our next question comes from Meredith Heller.
Okay.
And she asks, since you conceived of this podcast, is your audience who you imagined it would be? Any surprises? And you started to allude to this earlier, Alex, the audience.
Yeah, I think that the surprises are... I'm just mostly surprised and grateful at how big it's become, because I just love it when people come up to us and say, I listen to your podcast. And it's, clinicians from all different, walks of life, nurses, nurse practitioners, social workers, so multidisciplinary people, researchers. It's just great.
Yeah.
I'm just continually surprised.
I think it's kind of cool that Alex and I are actually going to Brazil in a week to do a live podcast in São Paulo. How's your Portuguese, Alex? You getting ready for that?
Tudo bem. Yeah, sim.
Alex is learning
E você?
Portuguese.
No?
I tried it for a week, but I failed. But just the fact that we have a greater international presence, I think, is really cool. Thanks to big shout out to all the Brazilian guys. That's our number 3 market for JPal.
So it's U.S. Canada then Brazil, or U.S. Australia then Brazil?
Oh God, I forgot who number 2 is.
Yeah.
I got to look at number 2. I think Brazil is number 3. Yeah, I'm just surprised that the reach. And then I love going to HPM and doing our bar crawl just because we get to see everybody who listens to it.
Geriatrics, big in Brazil.
Big in
Wow.
Brazil. Yeah.
Okay, this next question comes from a friend of the podcast, Nancy Lundeberg.
Nancy, hello, Nancy.
Hello, Nancy.
And she's asking, looking back at the podcast, is there anything you would do differently? Grab a wing while you think about that, by the way.
We got to switch to the next wing.
I'll start answering. Or I'll start answering while Eric's chewing there. Anything you do differently? I think we would have. Okay, so yes, I would have done some things differently. There are some earlier episodes. When you listen to those episodes, maybe skip over the song because I would just wing it. I would practice it for 5 minutes before, and it was pretty bad sometimes. And that served a purpose, right? Because then we all laughed about it when I'd flub a chord or lost my place. And then that'd break everybody out of their academic mood. But now, as many of you know, when you listen only, then you get a higher quality recording that I record in advance. And I do try to put more time into preparing the song. So apologies for those listeners who joined us early, but hopefully that has changed. I would have done that earlier had I known.
I got no regrets. I think we learn as we grow. And I think the one thing is, I don't know, I feel like winging it sometimes, we try to keep it casual on this podcast. Sometimes we say stupid stuff. Sometimes we don't. Oftentimes I do say stupid stuff, but that's okay. This is we always tell our guests when they join our podcast, think of ourselves, this is not Grand Rounds. This is not like a podcast. We're sitting at a dinner table.
That's right.
And we're having a conversation. And why would you regret anything having that conversation?
All right. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have Mike. A few people asked sort of overlapping questions. So we are up to this one where we have Michael Reynolds in Davis, California, and Audrey Tan. They're both wondering, what do you think palliative care will look like in 10 years' time?
Oh, you go first. I'm still eating this last one.
Yeah.
This is sriracha, by the way.
I think one recent episode that we did on community-based palliative care was enlightening to me is the growth of for-profit palliative care systems. I think we're probably going to see, in the next 5 years that enter into geriatrics. We're seeing it in some places, a little bit of growth around PACE and for-profit, but I think we're really seeing it first in hospice, and now we're seeing it in palliative care, so it's moving farther and farther upstream. So I think in 5 years, I think a lot of us are going to be dealing with some of these issues of how do we work within for-profit systems. And honestly, if you're working for academic nonprofit, a lot of that starts looking like for-profit, where you have these large academic centers buying up all of these small ones. And how do we in palliative care work within those systems, advocate for our patients, when there are potentially motivations that are more around focused on bottom line than it is on best care possible that we can deliver to patients.
Yeah. My answer is going to be about AI, but I also have to ask, are there other questions about AI? So maybe, I shouldn't.
Yeah, we'll get to AI.
We'll get to AI?
Yeah.
Does that mean I shouldn't talk about AI now?
Yeah, we'll talk about AI in a minute.
Okay. I'll give a different answer. All right. Okay. What else about palliative care is going to change in 10 years? Well, okay, I'll be optimistic. I think that we've been building the scientific research base for some time, and we are at a critical point where we're just, the NIH is now funding a tremendous amount of palliative care research, including the ASCENT group, which is a research infrastructure funded by the National Institutes of Health. And it supports early career investigators and mid-career investigators primarily, but it also provides an infrastructure for palliative care research nationally. And I am hopeful and optimistic that will lead to major advances across the whole continuum of palliative care, from communication to health services type research to care in the hospital, care at the bedside, in the nursing home, care outside of the hospital in the clinic and in patients' homes, and improving the hospice Medicare benefit, for example. That's my optimism speaking. I hope that's true.
All right. Thank you. And then the next future question relates a little bit to what Eric was talking about from Dana Lusbader. Dr. Dana Lusbader says, given palliative care is rapidly expanding into home-based care, this is palliative care, often with a focus of reducing hospital admissions, how should the field think about its identity in this changing context?
That's a great question. I think always keeping your mission to your heart and really think about what are we trying to achieve here. So I think delivering the best care possible to patients is our kind of North Star. And in order to do that, I'm going to just do a shout out to what our title is for this podcast, GeriPal. Because if you are delivering that type of care in the community, you can't really be doing it without really some competency in geriatrics. Palliative care is, if we're moving into outpatient, farther upstream, dealing with folks with cognitive impairment, dementia, frailty, you got to know what those things are and how to manage it. Oftentimes more so than what we do in our training as palliative care providers and fellowship. So I think we have to integrate more geriatrics into palliative care, similar to how we're doing in geriatrics, where every Geri fellow is doing some palliative care rotations. Why aren't we doing the same in palliative care where they're doing mandatory geriatric rotations, especially in the community?
I like Eric's answer, and I'm going to add because you said North Star, and I'm remembering that triggered me to remember, we did a podcast where I also said North Star, and that was talking about health equity and disparities being a guiding North Star in the type of research we do and the care that we provide. And that we should always be asking ourselves, how will this affect various groups, particularly groups who have been historically disadvantaged, for example? And how can we improve this so that it boosts up those groups and or is applied equally to boost up all groups rather than a particular group of historically privileged peoples?
Which also reminds me of one of our last podcasts on rural palliative care.
Yeah. Right.
Same thing with rural geriatrics. It is a population of folks that have high mortality, high morbidity, very little healthcare access. And what are we doing to improve the care for those folks?
Okay, I'm going to invite you to start working on another wing. I also, and I want to say, Alex, the last time we did this, compared to today, this time last year, our sinuses were really starting to get a wreck.
Yeah.
We started crying. I feel like you've shown up here with these hot sauces, maybe a little bit gun shy, self-preserving today.
The first one was the only hot one so far.
The pendulum has really swung a different
By the way,
direction. Alex.
I am actually dipping my into the first one because I need the spice.
I would
Because the
say
last
that we're not
three,
really,
they escalate quite rapidly.
I would say we're not really doing hot ones. We're doing Ask Me Anything over chicken nuggets right now is what it feels like.
I love chicken nuggets.
Well,
I just want to say
You're in the
I'm
right
not
place.
unhappy.
Everything's in the right place. Okay.
And I'm already sweating.
I have not even got into the milk yet.
So as you go ahead and eat that very mild chicken wing that is next on your plate, Sabrina Freitas asks, what do you think the future of geriatrics looks like? And what advice do you have for a soon-to-be medical student interested in geriatrics?
My advice would be go into geriatrics. The population is definitely growing for the field. There's a tremendous amount of need. And there's so much that we can do to improve the lives of these patients. And the skills that you will learn in a geriatric fellowship will really last a lifetime as a healthcare provider. So I do mostly palliative care now, clinically, currently. And I bring in those geriatric skills every single day into my palliative care practice. And I'm so happy I did a geriatrics fellowship. I'm one of those optimistic about our field. It was a little rough year from a fellowship standpoint this last year. I'm hoping.
What do you mean?
A decline in the number of applicants.
Nationwide.
I actually think it's a blip. I don't know. I just feel optimistic. I like talking to med students. I think that there is this focus on geriatrics. Yes, we have to do a lot as far as increasing the pay disparity between geriatrics and other fields. But like geriatrics, if you talk to a geriatrician, they love the field. They're satisfied with the work that they do. And then a lot of that is just because we get to work with great patients and actually really have a meaningful impact on their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that this question, what it's hinting at here is that article by Jerry Gerwitz, right? We had on the podcast in JAMA about geriatrics and concerns about the direction in which it was heading, which I think are great concerns to raise and discuss in our field. And I am glad that he started that conversation or continued it. And there's certainly, we had disagreements about the data and what they mean and what the future of the field looks like on our podcast. I'm sure many of you had these similar discussions at your institutions within geriatrics. And I guess I would say that I am very optimistic about the future of geriatrics in general, just because of the aging of our society and that people who are in Congress, in places of power, presidents, are also aging. And I think we show our value to those people and that will come back to us eventually. But we really do need a groundswell of support in order to, because, I think the reimbursement issue is really big here. And I worry that we had a terrific podcast about billing in geriatrics and palliative care, separate podcasts. And I think people really need to leverage those opportunities because, of course, when people are graduating from medical school with huge debts and they continues through residency, they may end up choosing a different field.
And I would also say this is not limited to geriatrics. Like if we really want to promote better care for older adults, we got to pay primary care more.
Yeah.
We got to pay those cognitive specialties. Nephrology, another great one where, they're delivering amazing care, but they don't get paid as much. So you're seeing decreasing number of people applying to nephrology. Man, if I had one wish, would be to improve how we deliver primary care and actually pay reciprocally for that type of care too. And I just wanted to go back to my optimistic place is when I was a med student, nobody taught us what an IADL or ADL is.
Yeah.
Now it's like infused into the curriculum. We just did a podcast on age-friendly healthcare,
right,
which is being infused into hospitals. Nurses are being taught delirium. Like there is so much geriatrics that is happening in healthcare systems now that wasn't there 20 years ago. And I think that part for me is also very optimistic that oncologists are being trained on how to do this. And that says a lot to like those geriatricians who've infused that into all of these different specialties, disciplines. And that's cool.
Cool. Thank you. I think we should have Jerry Powell fellowships.
We
what
do.
You think?
Yeah.
You direct one.
Are we moving on in our...
that was a transition statement.
Okay.
Okay. Are we moving on in our wings?
Sure.
We only have 3 left, and this is where it gets tough.
Okay, let's do one more.
All right, we'll do one more question, and then we'll move on. Okay, so from Eric has moved on.
I needed some meat.
From Margot.
It's getting spicy here.
The next question is Margot Smith. Here you go.
That's my mom. Hi, Mom.
Oh, it's your mom?
It is, yeah.
Oh. Wait, this is really funny because listen to her question.
Oh, no. Eric's getting the spice now.
Oh, that took like 30 seconds for that spice.
Boy. Okay. Your mom asked, should doctors be required to reveal that they are using AI in their diagnosis and treatment plan? And how do we know what is evidence from hallucination?
Oh, that's great. Good question, Mom.
You must be like really connected because you really wanted to talk about AI.
Right. I wanted to talk about AI earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, I've soured on AI. I used to be a bit more enthusiastic. I mostly talk with AI because I kind of like the voice interaction and I'm a slow typer and I have giant thumbs, so I can't really do it fast on my phone. But I enjoyed having conversations with AI. It was mostly correct, kind of like a friend, And yet recently I've been more disillusioned, particularly as an editor at JAGS, is like the number of submissions that are likely AI or clearly AI has just gone through the roof, particularly as like we're getting a number of reviews or, trainees are using AI to write their papers, their reviews, their grants. it makes me worried because, of course, there's a connection between how we write and how we think. And it is a painful and important and exciting process to learn how to write well, to make an argument clearly. And if we lose that, if we de-skill people's ability to write, we are also de-skilling their ability to think clearly. So I worry about that. And I do see AI used increasingly in clinical practice. I think we had a podcast with our chair of medicine, Bob Wachter, about his recent book, which was very optimistic about the future of AI. I'm beginning to sour on it in my world, and I worry that in the clinical world, I mean, we asked him about this. We said, is there any world in which instead of calling this book a giant leap, you call it a giant letdown? He said, no, he didn't really feel that way. I'm starting to feel a little bit that way, and I worry it's going to be like the similar story that we had with the social media, with electronic health records. We've been burned before. Maybe I'm extra sensitive to it, but I feel like I'm on the leading edge of being burned again.
Isn't that a song? I'm trying to remember what song with that.
Oh, sing it.
No, I'm trying to remember the lyrics.
It's all right. We're spontaneous. What'd you say?
Just wing it.
There we go. Finally, the pun comes.
I'm just going to keep reusing that one.
This one has spice. It kicks in after 30 seconds.
There's a sleeper wave. Yeah.
I would say this is that I used AI this morning. It was around PTSD and nightmares. I remember doing a randomized control study on prazosin and nightmares. But I didn't know what was published in the last 6 years. So I actually did open evidence just to see if there's anything else around nightmares and PTSD symptoms. Do I think we have to let our patients know that we did that? No, I don't think we need to know that. If we use ambient AI, I think they should know that. I think if we're giving, some billionaire oligarch patients' information through an AI agent, we should probably actually let patients know that and give them the option not to send their patient information out there. But I think that's going to become harder and harder because these are going to be built into EMRs. Yeah, so I'm both optimistic and I also agree with Alex. We've been here before. We've been burnt multiple times. Alex is really struggling with the spice.
Alex's eyes just said,
so
"Auga."
hot.
Yeah.
Whoa. This one is incredibly hot. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Just cross the threshold.
I also never fully trust what the AI agent is telling me because
it's hard to know if it's a hallucination.
Or even where is the data coming from? I think stuff that's really well done or that we have a lot of research in, it does a pretty good job. Stuff that's more marginal as far as the research, I think it still struggles with, and it pulls up a lot of bad journals when it's pulling up information.
Right. I don't want to pick on an AI, but we did try to enter some information about what's the prognosis for this particular patient with these characteristics, and it kind of made something up. It filled in a bunch of factors that are in a model, but it didn't actually know what they were because we didn't tell it what they were, and so it somehow made them up and it came up with a number. So there are some concerns about our people's use of AI, and I agree. I don't think you can disclose it now because it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's not possible. It's not realistic.
Are you an AI agent?
I might be.
Yeah.
Before we go into make this a podcast about AI,
okay. Yeah.
I do want to say, Alex, there's a big article in the newspaper this weekend that is a call to action to essentially stop using AI for writing because our brains are probably eroding.
Great.
From that.
Yeah, people should read that. Also read Ezra Klein's article about how he's concerned people are uploading themselves to AI. Remember when we contributed to social media, all that content we gave away for free? Now people are giving stuff away to all these AI companies for themselves, even deeper aspects
all
of themselves.
Our podcasts
their conversations.
Uploaded.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
check
eating
out
this now.
Alex's TikTok account.
He gives so much of himself.
He really does, right up his nose. Okay.
So personal.
So next, I'm going to move us on. We could talk about that all day. So Elizabeth Cobbs says, are there ways you noticed ageism in your day-to-day? What are some of the things that you do to help combat ageism?
Oof. Oh, this is
a good one.
This is a good one. Alex, do you have any thoughts on this one? I'm trying to think.
Well, I think the major ways in which I see ageism are through treatment of disabled older adults, people who have late life disability. not giving that space, not moving aside for them, taking up handicap seats in sort of my day-to-day reality. And then I could just have to say that I came back from this conference, this bioethics conference in Austin hosted by the Greenwald Foundation. And we were having a discussion there about, allocation of scarce resources. And I think there is a healthy debate that we've had on this podcast and talked about, should we be prioritizing scarce resources to younger people over older people? And that is a debate and discussion that I have two minds about. I'll just go into it briefly because I know we have many questions to come. But on the one hand, I feel like the fair innings argument that those who are younger have a longer runway ahead of them, and they should be allowed the opportunity to experience all of life's innings as opposed to those who are in the ninth inning. That makes intuitive sense to me. The problem I have is that that's like in a vacuum, and that in our current society, there's so much ageism that informs our choices. That might reinforce those stereotypes. In fact, it might even inform the stereotype to begin with, right? And so I worry about ageism as a result of allocation decisions.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to when the dialysis was initially created. There was set up in the God Committee up in Seattle, where they decided who got and who didn't get the scarce resource of dialysis. And social worth was one of those factors that was part of that decision, which sounds eerily familiar in a way to this, like who gets to decide who is socially worthwhile to get this treatment versus those who aren't, which is not too far off from this innings idea. So we got to be really, really careful. I think the other thing that I noticed, I mainly work in the hospital, so just the daily practice of ageism, like we have people who we see who people think may not have capacity to make decisions. And I think that's partly they would question that if they were a lot younger, but if they're older, they don't question it. And sometimes all they need is like a pocket talker so they can hear better.
Right.
So really think like when we're seeing patients is how much is ageism playing into our diagnostic reasoning, even around things like capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next question is from Bobby Fleck, who's a palliative care chaplain in Chattanooga, Tennessee. How does your own faith or spirituality influence your work, both in terms of caring for patients and families and in terms of your own personal coping?
I'll start off. One of my first articles I ever wrote was like how to approach a miracle, which was, I think it was JPSM, the article was in. And what I learned in writing that article and talking to smart people, Dan Sulmazy and others, is that, man, even if I don't consider myself religious, I also take a little bit of concern with the term spiritual because I do think it brings in a religious undertone that our patients often are. And their patients tend to be very different than healthcare providers in their views and their religiosity. And we do our disservice to our patients if we're not exploring their spirituality, how religion impacts their decision making, how that impacts their coping. So I think that's an incredibly important question to explore with patients. So I try to do that, despite I consider myself an atheist, but I realize spirituality and religion is critical for the work that I do.
Yeah. So I was raised Unitarian Universalist, which is, what's the joke about? Speaking of jokes, that was the first question. The Unitarian Universalist, how do you scare the Unitarian Universalists out of your neighborhood? You burn a question mark into their yard because they're always questioning, and there's no, set of you must believe this, rules. And yet there are several principles that Unitarian you use, as we call ourselves, like to believe, and that includes things like there's an interconnectedness between all beings. And when I was in medical school, my dad got sick with cancer. I probably told this story on the podcast before. And as he became sicker, he had glioblastoma multiforme, he became more spiritual. And it really was a remarkable transformation, finding a way to think of this disease in some small way as a gift that allowed for, as Susan Block has said, like peace, growth, and transformation at the end of life. So my first research studies were on people who were nearing the end of life and the relationship with spirituality and how their experience was informed by their spirituality and how their experience informed their spiritual beliefs. So I absolutely think it's incredibly important in everything we do because the most fundamental questions that people are asking are spiritual, right? Like, why is this happening to me? What did I do? And how can I get right with God? And what does this mean in terms of my relationships with others, my relationship with whatever higher power? So that's my take.
Great. I'm going to invite you to get on to your next
I'm terrified.
chicken nugget.
Because that last one was hard.
It's not as bad as the last one.
Up.
Oh, it's not? Okay. It might be slightly out of order, dear listeners.
This next question is, however, a hot take from someone named Sean Morrison. Is that name familiar to anyone in this room?
Hi, Sean. Uh-oh.
And Sean's asking, hey, why are we still advocating for advanced care planning? It's less effective than gabapentin, Sean says.
He's trying to blow up our podcast. It's less effective than gabapentin.
We've silenced them.
This is the perfect humor for the Jerry Bell podcast.
I would say a couple of things. First is I agree with Sean fully that gabapentin generally doesn't work.
Oh.
Number needed to treat is like 7. So even in the best case scenario in these studies, for the very few conditions it was actually tested in rigorous studies, 6 of 7 people are not going to show a significant benefit from gabapentin.
This is not a question about gabapentin.
God, can I just keep it on gabapentin?
No.
Dang it. Advanced care planning. I would say this is that, I don't know. There are some questions like I don't need a super rigorous answer to. Like, should somebody do a durable power of attorney form to assign somebody a healthcare agent just in case that they lose their ability? I don't think everybody needs to do that. But man, in clinical practice, it is often so very helpful.
Yeah.
And it's actually very helpful if, as their illness progresses, that they actually have some type of discussion with their patients. So I think things like prepare for your care just makes like clinical sense. And I get that we have a lot of like history, like we've been burnt by things that make clinical sense that don't actually work. But the harms are actually very, very small. Like you talk about your health with somebody, what's important, what's meaningful, if done in a right way. There's costs associated with it, like it takes some time. But outside of that, like why not? And I think it is often an arbitrary distinction to go from what's advanced care planning to like what is serious illness communication, like the things that we do every single day, like on our geriatrics and palliative care services, like talking about people, what's important to them when they get them in the hospital. We're always talking about some future event, right? Like if you were to have a cardiac arrest in somebody who has like widely metastatic cancer is being admitted for hypotension, like we're still talking about stuff in the future. So it's always advanced care planning. It's just how far in advance does the value proposition for advanced care planning start to erode? And I think it's really never for picking a healthcare surrogate. And I think for, doing an advanced directive, like the living will component, I do think it probably should focus more on those with serious illness.
I'll just add briefly that I think that we are still emphasizing advanced care planning in part because advanced directives are fairly easy to measure. And for researchers, we tend to follow things that are measured. And this is like a structural issue that's leading to this emphasis in our work in not just research, but also potentially in quality reporting, which I know, Sean Morrison, you're deeply concerned about. And that, what does that mean? Like, how do we address that? I think we have to address the fundamental structural issue and start measuring things that matter more. Like my mentor, Ken Kavinsky, who everybody knows has been on the podcast many times, his major focus has been hospital-acquired disability and late life disability in general. And he's been advocating for years that we should routinely measure disability, put it in the medical chart. And I think there's an analogy here about instead of measuring something that we think is of questionable importance, is there an signed advanced directive?
we should start focusing on capturing measures that matter routinely in clinical practice. We can debate what that is. Quality of communication. Do you feel heard and understood? After the death occurred, did you feel prepared for what happened, right? Those sorts of measures are really important, and they're not routinely captured. And if they were, I would hope that our field would start to move towards growth in that area, because that's fundamentally what we care about the most, right?
Yeah.
The communication.
I was trying to think about measuring these hot sauces because I do think that they're out of order. With that said, the last one was Carolina Reaper.
Right. You'd think it'd be hotter.
Yeah.
The one before that was super hot, that was, Elijah's Extreme ex-father and son Reaper sauce.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's a good, we're going to move on.
Okay.
Because I'm worried about the last.
Thank you, host.
Move on. Okay.
We don't have to have the last wing yet, though, right?
Not yet. Not yet. So we have a question from Ellen Rand. Since the COVID pandemic forced us all to think differently about treatments like ventilators, do you have any lasting changes to your practice when it comes to guiding providers and families around these interventions?
Ooh, from the COVID pandemic, like lasting from the COVID pandemic.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think what it made me think of is the sort of conversations around resource allocation that we were forced to have in that time as we were planning and sort of anticipating what was going to happen.
Okay, I got an answer. Lasting changes, I would say this, is that I think we've all had to learn how to do these conversations via Zoom, via telephone, a lot more often than we did before, and specifically in the outpatient setting. Like, Lynn, how often are you using Zoom for your outpatient clinics?
All the time.
All the time. So I think one lasting thing is really learning how to use different technology to have these goals of care conversations with family members, which is something that we do here. We have, iPads in the ICU. We're bringing in family members from long distance over Zoom and VA Video Connect and other things to bring people together. I think that was a specifically positive aspect of the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, I know we have a lot of questions, and I think I said my piece about resource allocation earlier.
Okay.
All right. Next question. Joanne Lynn is worried that increasing numbers of older adults will resort to hastening their own death through measures like voluntary stopping of eating and drinking or participating in medical aid in dying because supportive services are unavailable to them. Is that something you worry about? And what are some of the strategies that Geri Powell listeners could use to help avoid this outcome?
Man, that's usually the comments I get the most are podcasts we've done on medical aid in dying, voluntary cessation of eating and drinking. I know it brings up a lot of passion from both sides. Some people who think, let's say, medical aid in dying is not appropriate, and those that do. I try to keep an open mind where I kind of fall on the debate, and knowing that there's so much passion on each side that I don't see myself as an expert in this. I specifically don't do, let's say, medical aid in by myself, but I can see scenarios where I think it's really appropriate. And I do worry about utilization, like hospice utilization. With that said, I think hospice utilization is actually fairly high in people in California who use medical aid in dying, which, at least for me, kind of calms my thoughts. I think our most probably commented podcast was what was happening in Canada with medical aid in dying, and some of the arguments around slippery slope, like is it not just restricted to seriously ill patients, younger patients who may not be dying of a terminal illness. And I can see where the guardrails are slowly being kind of loosened. We're not seeing that in the US really, but it is a concern. I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I agree. And I know we want to move on. This is a tough one. We could do a whole podcast about this one. I think just to add to what Eric said, I think in California, we legalized medical aid in dying in 2016, the same year we started this podcast. And I wrote an article with Laura Petrillo about my concerns about enacting medical aid in dying in California. Incredibly diverse state, the most diverse state to legalize medical aid in dying, I believe, still. And I worry about legalizing something for very few people who tend to be white, wealthy, upper class, and privileged. Why are we creating this law for these people? That said, I have to say that I haven't heard much in the way of pushback from minoritized communities about legalization in California. I think it has gone fairly well in California, and that is encouraging. And we have to be like vigilant to keep these guardrails up, keep thinking our way through this as new categories are considered. Some of the guardrails are questioned, et cetera. Eric?
Yeah. And one of the guardrails that we talked about was we did a podcast with Thaddeus Pope on, using voluntary cessation of eating and drinking as a pathway to medically and dying for people who do not have a terminal illness at baseline. I think that was I will have a link to that in the show notes. But again, people trying to loosen the guardrails to get more people eligible, which I kind of disagree with.
I also want to say, I think Joanne Lynn is also talking about the fact that we have diminishing resources for support to older adults in our communities. And she's worried that people are going to now be looking to these interventions to shorten their life because they don't get the support to get along.
I would say this is, we don't have diminishing money going into this. We are just reallocating those resources to very expensive drugs, hospitalizations, procedures. I mean, the fact that we are happy to give multiple MRIs, PET scans, $50,000 or $35,000 aducanumab drugs willy-nilly, but not wanting to actually help people in their homes, not paying for hearing aids. Like that's a decision. The resources are there. We just allocate them towards generally for-profit companies that have specific interests.
Okay, I'm going to move us into the next questions. Thanks, Eric. So the next one comes from Anne Pomper, and I'm going to ask for each of you to give your top tip here. How do you recommend patients and families communicate with providers to guide conversations toward what matters most?
Oh, how do you initiate this with your provider? I'm going to do a shout out again. I said prepare for your care. I think that's a great place to start for patients and families to use to think about goals of care, because it also has a section on how to talk to your provider about what's important to you. So giving people those words. I also just think bringing it up with them is not being shy to bring it up, because I think providers are often shy to talk about things like prognosis, goals of care. And if a patient or a family member brings it up, I think they're more likely to. So just having the courage just to talk to your provider. Alex is starting on the ghost pepper.
Okay. And Eric, you gave 2 tips. So you gave one for you and one for Alex. All right. So we're moving on to, this is our final audience contributed question. And our final
hot sauce is so hot.
Oh, man.
It's not the extreme regret.
This is ghost pepper.
Oh, that's ghost pepper. One of these was called extreme regret.
That was the last one, which was not that extreme.
You don't regret it that much?
I've had much more regret in my life.
Okay. That's for another podcast.
Hot.
Okay. Allison Silvers, Chief Healthcare Transformation at CAPC, Center to Advance Palliative Care, asks, why hasn't palliative care in the emergency room, in the emergency department, taken off? And you got to answer it now.
Ghost pepper.
Too much hot sauce.
Oh my gosh, that one's hot.
Visiting the ED
one of my first research studies when I was in research fellowship was about palliative care in the emergency department. Am I doing the right thing? Which is a quote from emergency medicine providers who felt like conflicted, like, I feel like maybe I'm not doing the right thing here, and yet this is what I've been trained to do, And the other quotes were like ABCs, ABCs, ABCs. And when somebody comes in with a DNR or is on hospice and they come to the emergency department, what are they doing here? This isn't what I was trained to do. Why are they in the emergency department? This is so hot. Everybody's suffering here. There's a lot of milk being poured. So why isn't it taken off? I think that there are factors that are both structural and cultural, and I think that they're shifting. So I think that the shift is that many people in emergency medicine are recognizing the importance of palliative care and taking a palliative approach. And I could, sorry, sweating here. Anecdotal evidence, we see a lot of emergency providers come to the annual assembly. We had many of our palliative care fellows are emergency medicine trained. We have...
we need one of them in here, like right now.
I know.
I am trying to finish this last one.
And so I think there is a culture shift within emergency medicine. and I've talked to many researchers who are at that Geri-Palli emergency medicine interface. But the structural issues are what's limiting. And the major structural issue is time. Like, you don't have a lot of time in the emergency medicine. So many of the things we do are so time intensive, like these high quality serious illness conversations. Everybody's dying in here. Who's like blowing their noses. Oh, wow. It's spicy. Right? That takes time. Like, you don't have time to have the full conversation. And I think people are starting to develop tools that could be used in the emergency department to start the conversation there, get it going, or have, when you have a time efficient conversation. But it's hard, I have to tell you.
Okay.
I am not sure why I went back for a second, but I was trying to finish that last one. It hurts. I would agree with Alex too. If you don't change the actual system, like if you just do training of healthcare providers, we did a podcast last year on palliative care in the ED. Whew. And if it's just education, that's just not going to work. Like, we actually have to change how we care for people, the structures of care for people, kind of similar to Geri-EDs, I think, bringing in and infusing geriatrics, infusing palliative care and everything that's happening in the ED, even if you're not bringing a specialty palliative care, you're doing good primary palliative care. Next question.
Okay, well, now I'm really glad that Alex didn't make us do that 10 times because this last one was tough.
Oh, so hot.
Okay, you guys, you reached the finale for a very special lightning round.
Okay.
We've gotten to the end. Clucky you. I've been saving that one.
Is that a chicken pun?
That
I've been
is.
saving that one. You're welcome, everybody. Okay. Okay, these next 3 questions are lightning round.
Okay.
We're celebrating the 400th episode, looking forward to 500, right? So in the next 100 episodes, if you could have any celebrity as a podcast guest, who would it be?
Vivek Murthy. Vivek,
We've been
former
trying to get
Surgeon
him on.
General of the United States. Come on the podcast.
Come on the podcast. You were my resident.
Anybody who's a listener out there who knows Vivek or runs into him, please tell him we would love to have him on the Geri-Pal podcast.
You guys are nuts. I'm going Brad Pitt or Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton.
Okay.
All right. Alex, is there a song that you hope you never have to play? Potential guest, listen closely.
I don't know. I don't think there is a song. I mean, there are songs that are really hard to play. Like, if you requested classical music, that would be hard.
Would you play Milkshake again?
No.
No.
Eric did request that.
Yeah.
One of our 100th podcasts.
Listeners who are going to come up on the show, I'd love to hear Alex do some Tool.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Just remember Tool.
Charlie XTX.
I don't know what that is either.
Silence the room.
Okay. And lastly, if you had to add something new and fun to the podcast experience in the next 100 episodes, what would it be?
Oof. I don't know. The last episode we did with Stephanie Rogers, she came in, play the fiddle on one side of me. Alex was playing on the other side.
Eric
and
was in the middle?
I was just in the middle.
Check out the Instagram of this.
Yeah,
Stephanie Rogers'
Erica
Instagram.
Kazoo.
Check out my son's comment on the Instagram.
Guy in the middle is pretty useless. NGL, not gonna lie.
Cowbell. I think I can learn how to do a triangle maybe or a cowbell.
There you go.
Alex?
Yeah. We're open to any suggestions from you, dear listeners. Yes, Lynn.
Dunk tank.
Dunk tank. Lynn wanted to do a dunk tank for this episode.
That's a 500th episode. We'll do a dunk tank.
I also think it could be interesting. What if you guys had a live streaming event?
Yeah, we kind of Brazil. We're doing that. Well, it's not
where
live.
People could watch you live on YouTube. Think about it.
No. Oh, the two of you who are watching us live.
Yeah.
I know everybody else is working because it's the middle of the day.
We'll really advertise it in Brazil. Okay, you guys, you've reached the end of your Ask Me Anything. Well done.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And maybe we do a little bit more Taylor Swift.
Okay, a little bit more.
I don't know about you, I'm feeling 22. Everything will be alright if you keep me next to you. You don't know about me, but but I bet you want to. Everything will be alright if we just keep dancing like we're 22.
Lynn, Anne, thanks for leading us through this 400th podcast.
Thank you,
Lynn gets
Lynn.
really
Thank you,
excited.
Anne.
Excited.
Taylor Swift.
And thank you to all our listeners for your continued support. We'd also like to do a special shout out to all of those supporters who've donated more than $250, including
Brian Castle, Victoria Brond, Susan and John McFadden, Christopher Heck, Emise Samoji, Matt Schuster, Carrie Hagan, Lloyd Woolstat, Kari Levy, Marnie Fetzer, Ron Sabar, Stephanie Gabatuller, Patrick Lally, Richard Lewis, Margaret Young, Cindy Harris in honor of Emily Guillot, April Sear, Anna Naik, Xinyi Wang, Sudha Chandrasekhar, Michael Reisner, Asher Edwards, Susan Nelson, Rebecca Goldstein, Rochelle Bernacki, Carol Dietrich, Mark Andrews Wren, Elizabeth Cobbs, Amy Rack, Meg Walhagen, Xinyi Wang, Sharon Bragman, James Tulsky, and Yana Scharf, Kelly Strait, Michael Bordowski, Jessica McFarlane, Gretchen Schwarzy and Joshua Mesrich, Rob Razak, Diane Meyer and Sean Morrison, Elizabeth Chung, John A. Hartford Foundation, and Harry Hahn.
thank you very much for your continued support over the last year. Your support keeps these lights on.